Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on consumer engagement strategies. My name is Simbiat Yusuf. I am the Member Relations Manager at Forth. We have a few announcements and updates from Forth before I pass it along to our moderator and the webinar promotional partner today, Margaret Mohr, who is the communications director at Veloz. Attendees, we ask that you please be sure to submit all your questions through the attendee chat. We will be getting the webinar slides and recording to you all after the presentation today. And we've taken a summer break, so if you've forgotten a little bit about Forth, no problem. We like to start with a little introduction about us. Forth is a nonprofit trade association located in Portland, Oregon. We are working in 4 main focus areas, which are industry development, policy advocacy, consumer engagement, and demonstration projects. And through all of these efforts, we hope to advance and advocate for equitable clean transportation. If you want to learn more about Forth, you can find more information on our website at forthmobility.org. And as always, the work we do and these webinars cannot be possible without the support of our members and our sponsor. I want to give a big shout out to our webinar sponsor today, Pivot Marketing. If you want more information about the membership, visibility on a webinar, and just the support of Forth work, you can reach out to me, Simbiat Yusuf. My email is on the screen, and we can chat and talk about visibility options and support of Forth. And today is actually the first webinar in our 2021 fall webinar season. We have some fun and engaging topics curated for you all, where we'll be highlighting 8 topics from workplace charging, funding opportunities, school buses, and anti-displacement and gentrification as we talk about transportation electrification. So we hope you can join us for all of them, but we'll be sending more information about that. And EVNOIR and Forth invites you to register for the E-Mobility, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference. Registration is now open for this virtual conference. It will be a 2-day conference, November 17th through the 18th of 2021, this year. The E-Mobility, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference will explore and facilitate real conversations about strategies and best practices for engaging diverse communities, often hit worst and first by air pollution. So we hope you're able to join us and register for this 2-day conference. And we want you to save the date, mark your calendars. Roadmap will be back and will be returning June 29th through the 30th of 2022. If you want more information about Roadmap, if you've missed Roadmap in the past, feel free to look at our website, roadmap4.org, for more information about the conference and speakers who attend, sponsorship, and just general information. And with that, I'm going to pass it along to our moderator, Margaret.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I'm Margaret Mohr. I'm the Communications Director with Veloz. We have a great panel discussion on consumer engagement, and it's the first of the series, so it's going to be the best one. So glad you guys can join us. So let me go ahead and start with introducing you to our panelists. We have Stephen Alaman. He's the Program Manager of Forth. We have Mark Scribner. He's the EV Program Manager of New England Energy. We have Jenn Schimmelpfennig, and she's the founder and president of Pivot Marketing. And we have Levin, who is the executive director of Plug in America. So we are very excited to have you guys on the panel, and we want to ask you an icebreaker question really quick. And we'll start with Jenn, and we'll go to Mark, and then Stephen, and then Joel. So tell us, what do you like most about your electric car?
Sure, the quiet. I really like how quiet it is. You feel like you're gliding. It's also really easy to speed. and I kind of warn people on that.
Yeah, right. Beware. Mark?
Yeah, well, if you'd asked me over 9 years ago when I first got my car and only had it a little while, I would have said just being able to plug it in at home overnight and having it be full again in the morning. But after almost 10 years, I think I really actually like the fact that it needs very little maintenance. I need new tires for the winter, but that's all I've needed in the past several years. So like that a lot.
You're an early adopter. Steven?
Well, I should mention that I'm still saving up, but I'm going for a used Chevy Bolt. I really like the backup features that they have, just the visibility you get, and I really like how well the vehicle monitors your efficiency. I think that's awesome. But I think it's worth mentioning that I'm really excited for the Ford F-150 Lightning as well.
That is good to know. Joel?
Well, one thing I love that I've discovered about my car, I have a Nissan Leaf, is that when you pull up to a stop sign, if you're in kind of a quiet area and there's no other cars around, you happen to have your windows down, you know what you hear? You hear birds chirping. That's kind of weird from the middle of a car, but total silence, you hear birds. So that's kind of a cool thing.
Yep. Well, that's excellent. I drive a Nissan Leaf, and I think probably the best thing for me is to be able to plug in overnight. It's like plugging in your phone. It's like you have this habit, and you plug in your phone overnight, you plug in your car overnight. So that's really what I think is the best thing about having an electric car. Then it's fully charged in the morning. So thank you, guys. We're going to, let me go ahead and fill you in a little bit about Veloz and who we are. Some of you may know and some of you may not, but Veloz is Spanish word means fast. And the world is going electric and we're not going fast enough. And our whole mission and what we want to do is we work to make electric for all a reality faster. We have a terrific group of members that come together from the public sector and the private sector to support our programs, our policy engagement, our public awareness campaigns, which we're very well known for, to just overcome the barriers of transportation electrification. Our campaigns, which you may or may not be familiar with, for Electric for All, have been started in 2018 with a campaign called Opposites Attract. And then we went to Kicking Gas in 2019 with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we went from the Terminator to the Hulk this year with 40 Million Reasons to Go Electric, supported by Mark Ruffalo. And we were very excited. This was an equity campaign where we wanted to really showcase that electric is for everyone. It's affordable, has range, and anybody can get an electric vehicle and feel good about it. We had 40 million total campaign impressions and 10.5 or 10.8 million views and listens, 370,000 page views just for electricforall.org, and 70,000 automaker leads. And we were very excited to drive this traffic to our website, electricforall.org, for education and awareness, and also to be able to shop and compare your car and your EV tool by zip code for the top 25 regions in the country, and also the top 25 utilities by service area. But we recently in October added Home Charging Advisor, which actually shows all the home chargers available in the area with the incentives. And then just a month ago, we added Incentive Assistant, which allows certain areas to be able to apply directly online to make it easy to be an EV owner. So this is a great tool for growing and educating and awareness for everybody, and it's electric is for all. So we are very excited that we will have our next campaign. We're working on it right now. And if anybody wants to know more about it, certainly contact me. Here's my email, margaret.mohr@veloz.org, and you can learn more about our next campaign, which is very exciting. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and start our presentation and our panel with Joel Levin, and he's going to be talking about National Drive Electric Week. Take it away, Joel. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Well, thank you to Forth for having me. So I'm Joel Levin, Executive Director of Plug-in America. And so I want to talk to you about National Drive Electric Week. We've been doing it now since 2011 every year. Plug in America is one of the national hosts of Drive Electric Week, together with Electric Auto Association and Sierra Club and EV Hybrid Noir, who has just joined us this year. We're really excited to have them. So for those of you who are not familiar with Drive Electric Week, this is a national campaign of EV events across the country. The last time we had a full campaign was 2013. There was over 300 events across all 50 states, more than 100,000 people attending, plus in Canada and a few other countries. And it's intended as an opportunity for consumers to experience EVs in a fun and not a sales environment, where people can test drive electric cars and talk to consumers about their experience in the cars. And so for this year, we're looking at probably 170 plus events, a mixture of online and in-person events across at least 40 states, probably more. And we are very conscious that we are living in the era of COVID-19, and so we want to be really careful about safety with these events. So all events will be completely outdoors. Masks will be required. We will have test drives, but we're very careful about the test drives. It will just be only the drivers in the car plus a dealer representative, and we're asking that people have their windows down and masks on and surfaces clean. So we're very conscious about COVID-19 safety. There is funding that is available for city captains who want to put on events. So if you're thinking about putting on an event, there's some potential for funding for them. If you're in the territory for Southern California Edison, we have grants available up to $1,500. And then there's also funding for events across the rest of the country coming from Electrify America. And the details on that are still being worked out, and we should be announcing that probably within the next couple of days. So if you're thinking about putting on an event, there's some potential support there. In addition to which, for all events, we have a variety of support that is at no cost to the event organizers. We have event kits with giveaways, a variety of swag, printed EV materials, a website that you can use, national promotion. We have banners, t-shirts, directional signs, so a variety of things that are all covered through our sponsors. So that is basically what I've got for you. If you are thinking about putting on an event, please reach out to us. This is our email contact. Or if you just want to attend an event, go check out the map and see the different events that are online. So that's what I've got. If you've got questions, I think we can take them at the end. So thank you.
Thank you, Joel. We really appreciate that. And as it says here, you can submit your questions through the attendee chat, and we'll answer those later at the end after everyone presents. Now we're going to go ahead and be joined by Mark Scribner, and he will be talking about the 2020 survey findings and research that he has seen.
Good afternoon and good morning wherever you are. And I'm going to talk about surveys, savings, and support. These are initiatives that we do with E&E. Next slide. But first, a little bit about E&E, which stands for Energy New England. We're a wholesale power purchasing organization that provides power buying and other services for the public utilities in the New England region, including risk management and peak load management. And we also provide energy efficiency programs, and we serve EV programs to over 10 public power entities in Massachusetts. So the first topic I'm going to talk about is our surveys, which we called Your Future Vehicle Choice. And we chose that name, particularly not mentioning EVs, because we wanted to reduce the bias as much as possible in our surveys and get a broad population to tell us what they thought about EVs. And before I give information about our surveys, I wanted to just answer the question, some of my favorite answers about, why would you want to do a public EV interest survey? One really good reason is to gather a baseline of data about electric vehicles in a particular municipality or service territory. The results can also help you develop key insights about the interest and knowledge in vehicles, charging, incentives, and what are the influence factors or the barriers for EV adoption. And finally, it will help inform or strategize the best logical next steps for a municipality as they're developing their own EV roadmap. So about our surveys we did in 2020, we designed these surveys to build on previous surveys that had been done, such as the Harris polls in 2013 and 2015, and expand upon them. We surveyed 6 utilities between June and December of 2020 and got over 500 total responses from their customers, residents in Massachusetts cities and towns. In order to encourage responses and, again, to reduce the bias, we offered a chance to win a $50 gift card or a similar prize. We analyzed that data and provided to the utility, and we were able to use that in our programs as a kind of push-pull to help inform about existing EV incentives, both state and locally, to identify EV drivers to join the EV programs and other EV interested. And we created an EV email subscription list that we use still to this day to send EV newsletters monthly. So one of the questions on our poll was, how likely are you to purchase an EV by 2030? And we were pleased to see the response was that over half of these customers indicated that they would be likely to purchase an EV by 2030. However, there was a wide range from about 34% to 72%, depending upon the municipality. So about 1/3 to 2/3 of respondents. And we found that a municipality's socioeconomic demographics were what had the most influence on how high or how low that percentage was. And a question that hadn't been polled previously in Harris polls and others that we thought was really interesting to learn about was, what was the year that people are likely to purchase an EV, so that we could see what the adoption curve might look like. And we were surprised to see that, in fact, there was a bump indicated from 2022 to 2025 early, and then a little bit slower growth past that. So we're wondering, will there be future bumps like this as adoption goes on? We also found that 1/3 said they were not likely to get an EV until after 2030, and we'll have a little more info on that in the barriers portion. And we were also surprised to see 1/5 simply said they didn't have any idea when they'd be adopting an EV, and that shows really the power of more education and support to influence customers' decisions. We also, like Harris polls, asked what type of EV people were interested in choosing, but we also added the question, I don't know, or I'm not sure. And our answers trended like Harris polls. About 1/3 were interested in BEVs compared to about 2/3 to PHEVs. But then the largest single answer was the don't know or not sure, over 1/3 of total respondents. And this really shows that consumers need a lot more education and the value of EV finder tools like the Drive and Save Wizard we'll talk about a little later. Now we have a poll question. Symbiot. And so the poll question is, which factor do you think influence a driver's decision the most to choose an EV? And we polled this, so we'd like to see what your answers are, and we can compare them to what our polls said. So we have air quality, carbon footprint, a cash rebate, driving experience, or operational fuel and maintenance savings. Okay, so lock in your answers. And so it looks like the results are driving experience came up as number 1. And I didn't catch what the number 2 was, but let's see what our results showed. So interestingly enough, actually in our polls, driver experience ranked last in what would influence typical drivers' decision to choose an EV. Virtually tied for number one were a cash rebate and operational savings, fuel savings, most primarily, at over half. The next large group was the carbon footprint or air quality that were just a little below half or around half. And then the other categories were a little lower, less interested in the savings and the driving experience. So this can inform in terms of how you structure your marketing, and it can vary from community to community. But it does show that drivers really need more tools to calculate these financial and emission savings, because they're not always that easy to understand beyond MSRP or just understanding that EVs do have lower emissions. We also polled barriers, and there's been a lot done with this, so we decided to just poll those folks on barriers that indicated they would not likely be getting an EV until after 2030. And we didn't want to put the idea of barriers in people's head. There were about over 5,000 people polled in 2020 on this, and we had 2,000 more responses in 2021. And so we weren't surprised to see for those folks price top the barrier, and charging access was the next thing. But we really thought, if you see this yellow bar here, that around half of the people that think they had a barrier to charging actually lived in single family homes and may not realize they do actually have access to charging. So it's a barrier perception in a sense. We were pleased to see that even these late adopters were less concerned about range, but a full 20% didn't see a model that they were interested in, like a truck or an SUV. So that's kind of a hard stop for them. And other concerns were lower. So we really think drivers need to become familiar with these real world costs and savings. And that's what we'll talk about next. So we'll talk about savings, and not just savings financially, but we'll also talk about emission savings and how that can be a tool like the Drive and Save Wizard can be used to understand that better. We use financial and also secondarily emission savings in our marketing messaging as the lead message, and then follow up with emission savings as a secondary value to the driver. And you can see some of the marketing and tools that we use to empower the driver to help them understand each better on our websites and in our support. And specifically, the Drive and Save Wizard that we have launched in 2019 with 3 of our programs. It's a rebranded version of the Watt Plan EV Advisor tool provided by Clean Power with their own branding using the term Drive and Save Wizard. It's an easy to navigate wizard. It helps drivers find a specific EV that would most interest them as a tool, as a vehicle finder tool, and it will estimate the savings with EV purchases and incentives. And we're offering it for 3 of our programs for the past 2 years. It's going to allow people to select the factors such as MSRP and enter how many miles they drive. And it will factor in the federal, state, and local incentives. It will use the local utility rates and also calculate average fuel and maintenance savings. And finally, show that carbon emissions savings as well, which can be really difficult to calculate in some cases. So the EV Selector tool is great because you first can choose by price bracket, and there are many other tools similar to this that can do the same thing. But this one also lets you choose the type, BEV or PHEV, and a body style, which is very important. And then it'll do a side-by-side comparison of multiple EVs before you choose one to compare to a gasoline vehicle. And tools should personalize these cost comparisons like this one does. It personalizes it because first of all, it automatically selects a gasoline-only vehicle to compare that's kind of an apples-to-apples comparison. So here we chose a Volkswagen ID4, and it automatically grabbed a Nissan Rogue to compare to that, which is comparable compact SUV. And then all these incentives and fuel and operational savings should automatically calculate with a good tool and show an estimated break even, which is sometimes also known as a lifetime savings. Now you could make that 5 years or 10 years, but it'll show a total cost of ownership, or TCO, which is another thing that consumers you really want to show the bottom line to. And finally, our last topic is about support. And we've been running a support service in our programs since the get-go, since we launched several of our programs in 2018, and consider it a really key part of what we do, that any customer, any resident of these territories can reach out and get a real person to answer their questions, all the way from they're along their EV journey, whether they're at the very beginning and they really want to get an EV, but they don't know anything about them. We've had customers like that. And we've seen EV journeys accelerated from what used to be years. It took me 2 years to research and get my first EV, to a matter of weeks, and within the same month, having that EV in their driveway or in their garage. And so why should you provide an EV support service? I think these are probably my favorite reasons. It provides reassurance for drivers who have unique questions and concerns. Drivers can reach a trusted EV resource versus, say, dealers or advertisements that they may not trust. And drivers need this help because, as we've shown with our surveys, people are unsure about their EV choices. They need more cost and saving info. And those informed early adopters like myself, who did all that research, those are fading. We're seeing a next wave of adopters that are going to need more hand-holding, going to need more help. It's also a great way for utilities and municipalities to engage and leverage their EV community. That's the what's in it for me. And finally, this is getting more and more important. It enables an equity of access to EV information. We're not talking about financial equity, but we're talking about an information equity. And this is going to only become more important to reach these certain priority populations for EV adoption in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We do have a few questions for you, but I'm going to save them to the end so that we can get to our next presenter. And our next presenter is Stephen Allman with Forth, and he's going to be talking about consumer engagement strategies.
Hey everyone, thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Don't worry about taking notes on these slides. As Symbiote said, they will be shared with you in the end. I realize there's a lot of text, and I just wanted to kind of summarize everything in the presentation so you can view them later. Anyway, so I'll really be talking about just one of our programs today, and that is our Mobile Showcase program, which essentially, it's taking the success of our downtown showcase, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, which ran from, I believe, 2018 and is still open today, but is currently closed due to the Delta variant. But anyway, we had some early successes with it, and a study from NREL released some survey results showing that about 43% of people that ended up taking test drives at our downtown showcase ended up purchasing an electric vehicle within 6 months of their test drive. So really, we wanted to take that experience and try to wrap it into some of the other work we're doing. When it came to ride and drive events, we were bringing electric vehicles to consumers, but it still felt like there was this element that was missing. And that really was all of the educational materials that we had access to when talking to consumers at the downtown showcase. So really briefly, I'll just kind of walk you through what our downtown showcase experience was like, or is like, and then what our mobile showcase experience will be like as well. So at the very beginning of the tour, you can kind of follow along. There's kind of this, you see on the left side, there's like a lane, and it kind of wraps around both sides of the showcase here. It starts off just telling people, what is an EV, just starting with the basics there, educating people about things such as regenerative braking, battery technology, all of that stuff. And then we moved over to tools to show people, which vehicles were available on the market, which chargers were available on the market, and then how to find public charging stations, because that's one of the big barriers for people is, they may drive by a public charging station and not really know what it is. So simply giving people the tools to be able to find the resources that may already exist in their communities is a big part of this. And then we also had an EV drive finder, which essentially is just, we set up a Mac Mini with this touch screen, and people can just go through, select some stuff about their specific needs for a vehicle, where they live, whether they live in a condo, mud building, multi-unit dwelling, or they own a house. And it gives them a variety of options that will fit their use case and meet their needs. If you'd like to take a virtual tour of our actual downtown showcase, there's actually one on the website, and then there's the link at the bottom of this slide will take you there as well. All right, so I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Plug and Drive, which is a Canadian organization that does very similar work to what Forth does, but in Canada. And so they actually did this project before us in Canada using this showcase, which is a little different than our design. What they did was really cool. Is they focused a lot on the weight of the showcase itself, and as you can see, it folds up really compact, which makes it a lot easier for towing. And so their showcase is entirely able to be towed by a Mitsubishi Outlander. Still a plug-in hybrid, but the fact that it's able to be pulled by a hybrid in general is pretty impressive, or plug-in hybrid in general. All right, moving on. And so we don't have the final showcase finished, wrapped, and able for me to show it to you all. We're working with this local fabricator out of Portland, Oregon, named Figure Plant. They weren't super keen on me showing too much of their designs. So this is just kind of a draft of what it generally will look like. As you can see, there's kind of this balcony area at the top. And the top thing, it looks like it lays flat. And so very similar to our downtown showcase, people are going to come in on the ramp side, and then the tour will wrap around. So I'll start off with, what technology is out there, giving people the EV basics, and then moving on to charging. We'll have some physical chargers in there, as well as a touch screen that can help them use the different, charging station locator apps, such as PlugShare, ChargeWay, and there's a lot of others. There's ChargeHub and some more. And then we'll also be bringing in some micromobility, different types of micromobility things to showcase depending on which communities we are currently working with. And so we'll have electric motorcycles that will feature, and essentially this is just a gutted toy hauler that we've customized. And so it actually has all the locking devices to transport any type of micromobility thing we want to bring, as well as we'll be working with scooter companies as well. So really, we're trying to take the downtown downtown showcase experience and just hit the road with it. So I'm really excited about that. The ramps and everything are ADA accessible to make it so more people can come in. They'll have plenty of room to spin around if they're in a wheelchair, just so they can check out all those technologies as well. And we'll accompany the mobile showcase with a fleet of our electric vehicles as well. So people will be able to do test drives, check out micromobility, and just get general EV education. The partners we're working with on this project, this is a PacifiCorp funded project, and we're working really closely with some other CBOs. Sustainable Northwest is really been helpful at getting us access to event spaces in rural communities. We're going to be working with them on the Energy Symposium in Walla and Enterprise this year, so I'm really excited for that. We're working with African American Alliance for Home Ownership. They're going to be doing a lot of the event promotion and some of the event planning when it feels safe to do an event in the Portland metro area. And the Environmental Center, which is located in Bend, Oregon. And so they're going to help us essentially just get more access to Central Oregon, a Central Oregon audience, and help us tailor the materials to that audience as well. But yeah, each CBO brings really important local expertise, and we're really excited to have all of them on this team. All right, and I should mention that the whole point of the downtown or the mobile showcase is to take the downtown experience and really increase access. We found out that as successful as it wasn't a resource that was necessarily available to everyone. Being that it was open, generally 9 to 5. So if you worked all day, it was hard to come in without taking time off. And it was located downtown, so a lot of people had to either find parking, or if they didn't have a vehicle, take public transportation there. So really, we want to take this resource and just bring it straight to people in different communities, just so they can try it. Yeah, and I'm really excited about that. So I just want to talk about our test drive safety procedures, given that there's COVID and the Delta variant. Yeah, you can probably read through those if you'd like. But Yeah, for the most part, we're really making sure that we try to get people to schedule ahead of time. That way we know the demand of how many people are going to be at each event, and can actually plan ahead of time to make sure that we've scheduled time for proper cleaning, make sure that everyone on our staff has PPE, gloves, whatever makes our attendees more comfortable. But I also want to take a moment to say, if you're a consumer engagement organization and right now you're kind of balancing, do I do this event right now? I just want to say that during the height of COVID, we had a lot of success with our webinars that were bringing in EV drivers and kind of doing a panel of that and having them share their experience and just talking with an audience that can really relate to, or talking with a panel that can really relate to the audience, we found was really successful. So you don't necessarily need to do these in-person ride and drives if you don't feel safe yet. And that will get us to our next poll. And so I'll be pulling that up in just a second. But we're curious to see out of the people in the audience who all is interested and feels ready to attend an in-person ride and drive event this year. Oh, wow. Okay, well, we'll give that just a little bit longer, but so far, I'm not sure if you all can see this, but roughly about 65% of people are thinking that they are comfortable attending an in-person event, which is great to hear. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all so much, and I'm happy to answer your questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Stephen. Even with COVID, consumer education is very important to continue. So now I get to introduce Jenn, and Jenn has a presentation on and is showing some consumer engagement strategies. Thank you, Jenn.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks guys for joining, and Forth for having me today. I can't wait to see the mobile showcase. That is awesome. Great job, guys. Okay, so I'm going to take us through, as Mark was mentioning, some municipalities or many municipalities around the country are really figuring out their approach to EV adoption and encouraging the public to drive electric. One of those municipalities who we happen to work with is the City of Indianapolis and their Office of Sustainability. Some key funders on this particular project are the Indiana Department of Transportation and Bloomberg Philanthropies through the American Cities Climate Challenge. So the mission for the Office of Sustainability of Indianapolis is to make Central Indiana one of the Midwest's most sustainable, livable regions, and Indy as a leader in EV adoption. I would even say this this mission has evolved a bit, no pun intended, into becoming one of the national leaders in EV adoption. That's a lofty goal for a city like Indianapolis, but we're getting there. And that goal, when we look at the numbers, so our goal was to increase the number of pure electric vehicles in Marion County, which is synonymous with Indianapolis, Indiana, by 333% in 3 years. So from our baseline of 600, it's only 600, in March of 2019 to 2,000 by the end of 2022. So the consumer today, as Mark was talking about, surveys play a really critical role in our understanding of what consumers want, what maybe is preventing them from adopting an EV or driving an EV. We conducted a survey in April. This was pushed out through Pollfish. I'm sure those on this call have used that service before. And 20% of those surveyed, so we had 400 respondents, which was statistically significant for our DMA. 20% of Indianapolis drivers are likely or very likely to get an electric car as their next vehicle. It's pretty powerful. Of those who are very likely, 58% are 35 to 44 years old, and 65% are male. Just a couple tidbits there about our own metro. Reasons why they won't switch, just at a really high level. Some respondents are not likely to get an electric car because they believe they're too expensive, there aren't enough charging stations, they're uncertain about the technology and maintenance. And this one was interesting. Or they believe it will raise their electric bills. And it must be that they think it'll raise it more than the cost of gas. Just a guess, but why they will switch. They're likely to switch because they want to save money over the life of their vehicle. Electric cars are better for the environment, tax benefits, and they like new technology. So no real big surprises here, but we continue to reissue this survey about once a year. We even would like to do it about every 6 months, just because perceptions are changing so quickly. Okay, so as part of our initiative and trying to get electric vehicle adoption up 300%, over 300% in 3 years in Indianapolis, we wanted to entertain and educate. So I'm going to present a few concepts to you that we offered up to the client a couple of years ago. So now one of these has been produced. I won't give away which one yet, but I'll take you through our concepts, our entertain then educate concepts. First is called a Fistful of Facts. Our hero, armed with only an EV charger and right on his side, faces off against the filthy, low-down misconceptions surrounding EVs in a classic spaghetti western style. Our second concept, it's electric. A Nigel Tufnell type 80s glam rocker is psyched about all things electric, especially EVs, and is out to change the world by magically appearing wherever people are contemplating switching to an EV. So with this concept, our mascot character, every time people are talking about electric cars in their office or with their family, he pops up, plays a riff, and says, "It's electric." Our third concept, we call this one, "I Pity the Fuel." Mr. T promotes the benefits and corrects the misconceptions surrounding EVs as only Mr. T can. And our fourth concept that was presented, an evolved and enlightened dinosaur relays the benefits of EVs amid the struggles that come with being a dinosaur in the modern world. That's just a little snippet of each of these, but I'm going to take a poll and see which one of these was your favorite of the four. Which would you like to see produced? Awesome. Okay, well, thank God you guys picked the one that the client picked. And that is highly evolved, the dinosaur concept. A close second was Mr. T, which was actually our favorite. But Mr. T still wants a lot of money. We actually went as far as quoting it out, and his rates are a little prohibitive, just to let you know. Okay, so let's take a look at how the campaign ended up, what that looks like. I'm just going to flip through these quickly so you can see. This is highly evolved. Our graphics package. As others have talked about today, lots of events, and then of course those events went virtual within the last year. Also, this is kind of our don't be a fossil, drive electric. Fossil fuels, play on words. This is for our pop-up events and showcases. We have a myth-busting website, behighlyevolved.com. These are our billboards that ran around town. We're just getting ready. This campaign aired this fall for the first time, so we're getting ready to measure again and see how many people recollect it, how it's affected willingness to consider and purchase electric. Just a few more examples. We'll play the actual 30-second commercial spot. There were several developed, but one of them here in a second. And just to give you an update, we're well on the way to 2,000. So the number of registered pure electric vehicles in Marion County has already increased more than 200% from that early benchmark of about 600 in March 2019 to 1,328 in July. So small victories. And here's the video.
Sometimes being an evolved dinosaur in the modern world isn't so easy. Take The Office. From the politics, Chad, to making sure I look busy and dealing with technology.
He's probably still on dial-up.
But one thing that is easy, my electric vehicle. I just get in and go. No oil changes, no gas stations. Who's the dinosaur now, Chad? Don't be a fossil. Drive electric.
Okay. All right, thank you guys. And I should mention one last thing that Austin, the city of Austin actually had a dinosaur campaign as well. And we found that before we developed this campaign, contacted them, asked their permission, and they were like, we love it. We would love for another dinosaur campaign to exist in the country. And so our next thing will be TikTok dance-offs between the Austin dinosaur and our dinosaur. So look for those coming up soon. Thanks for having me, guys.
Jenn, that's wonderful. It's so nice to see all the progress you have made. And I'd like to invite all of the presenters to come back, turn their camera back on so we can have some questions. And from our attendees, we have Stephen and Joel. Great. What great presentations. Thank you all. We have so much work to do, don't we, as a team, and everybody's doing terrific work to get and move us faster, which of course is Veloz's goal and all of our goal to get everybody in electric vehicles. Let me do some real quick questions from the audience that we can go ahead and answer. I'm going to go to Stephen first. One of the questions was, where will the mobile showcase go, and will it go into PG&E territory?
Yeah, good question. Well, it is funded by Pacific Corp, so it will be in their service territory for now. But they've mentioned to us that, because they have essentially such a vast and sprawling service territory, that they're okay with, us doing events that are adjacent to their service territory as well. So to some degree, it could end up in some other service territories for other utilities. But for the most part, we're actually working with PGE to pitch another mobile showcase for their service territory as well. This way we can kind of do, especially during National Drive Electric Week, as Joel probably will mention, it gets so busy that it's really good to be able to meet the demands of high-level events all over the place. So we'd love to have two.
So where is your Pacific Core region? Can you just, for people who don't know, what is that region?
Well, it's sprawled all over the Pacific Northwest, but there's a little bit up in Washington, quite a bit of Oregon and surrounding the Portland Metro, and then a little bit into California as well.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Mark, real quick, I think you may have answered this in the chat, but just for those who didn't see it, tell us about how large your poll was, the geographic area, and what the demographics were for the respondents.
Sure. The poll in 2020 was for 6 utility territories that are Metro Boston area, and we got over 5,000 responses by the end of 2020. An additional 2,000 as we finished up the polls going into 2021. So, it was a general demographic. We were just targeting new and used car buyers, not any particular income or other demographic.
Like 18 plus or
with
the drivers. Okay, drivers. Okay, great. Jenn, is your campaign still currently running, or did you have a flight, or how long did that last?
It is still currently running, and will be for at least the next year. So yeah, we're thrilled with that. I saw a question come through about getting political leaders to test drive EVs. And actually, during National Drive Electric Week, we're having an EV showcase on Monument Circle, which is downtown Indianapolis. And the mayor and the city county councilors will be test driving EVs and doing a little press piece. So we're trying to get the political leaders involved as well.
Great. Thanks for answering that question. Are you doing a digital campaign with your campaign, or is it all broadcast, or what's the makeup of your marketing efforts?
Sure. It's CTV and OTT, so streaming video as well as streaming audio, plus some broadcast. We're looking to add quite a bit of broadcast in next year, layering that in, but kind of a bit of everything.
Just your region, obviously, right?
Yep, just our county.
Okay, but now maybe to Austin. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joel, tell us a little bit about how used EVs may play in Drive Electric Week and how important they are in getting attacking the barriers that we know exist with affordability.
Yeah, absolutely. So used EVs are really important. 2/3 of the auto market in the U.S. is used. The majority of people don't buy new cars. And what's really helpful about Drive Electric Week is that people bring their cars there. So, I mean, a big part of Drive Electric Week is having volunteers with their cars. Um, you know, most of which are not new cars. Some of people bring cars that they've had for a long time, and people can come and talk to EV drivers about their experience driving their cars. I drive a 2015 Nissan Leaf, and I love bringing it to EV events. And a lot of times people will show up and they're like, "Oh wow, I'd love to drive an EV, but they're so expensive. I can't really afford one." You're like, "You kidding? This is like a $7,000 car. It's not very expensive to buy used EVs." So it's great to have them at events and let people see them and kind of talk about them and realize that they're a really very affordable option for people, particularly once you build in the fact that used cars, for most people to buy a used car, the big expense, the thing you're really worried about is maintenance. And with a used EV, you're basically looking at like brakes and tires. There's not a lot of maintenance with my car. Hyper fluid. So yeah, used EVs are a great part of the story.
That's great. I'm wondering, what is it that is really, and everybody can answer this question, people's biggest hesitation about buying EVs, and what do you think we can do to change their mind? I mean, I think that's, each one can probably have an answer to that. What can we do? Stephen, you're shaking your head. Joel, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a combination of a few different things. I think for a lot of people who haven't experienced EVs, there's still this notion that like they're golf carts, or they're not much fun to drive, or this is like, buying an EV is like eating your broccoli. It's like something you're supposed to do because it's good for the planet. And so what we try to do, and this is kind of what Drive Electric Week is all about, is a combination of letting someone get behind the wheel and have that like aha moment where they punch it and the car kind of shoots forward, and then talk to an EV driver and find out, is this a big pain? Are you always running out of fuel? Is there no power? Is range a problem? And so the combination of discovering that it's really fun to drive and that drivers love their cars and all the sort of myths about them really aren't issues when you talk to a real driver. So those two things, you put them together, and that's actually really powerful.
Stephen, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a combination of what Joel said and people not seeing the models that they can really picture themselves in on the market yet. So a lot of people won't even get an electric vehicle to test drive it unless it's going to be a truck. So as soon as those vehicles become available and there's just essentially a wider range of options, I think a lot more people are going to take the dive to at least test drive one. And as soon as that happens, to Joel's point, I think a lot of people are going to be interested, and adoption will speed up quite a bit.
Yeah, Jenn, you're seeing some increase in obviously EV adoption. You're doing the education and awareness campaign, but do you see anything else that you think is just really pushing people over the edge that is helpful?
Yeah, I think the true cost comparison, something that Mark touched on, is really helpful for people as well to understand. But choice, I think, is the big, just like Stephen said, choice is really the big difference maker. We've seen even as more models have come on, it gives people something else besides Bolt, Leaf, or Tesla that they have to choose from. And that's made a big difference.
Yeah. Mark, you have a question here. Do you, it says, are there any municipalities running EV support programs, and do they have liability concerns?
I think that the liability concerns that have come up, and to answer your first question, yes, there are various utilities or even some municipalities, some cities that do have EV support services. And I think Joel might want to say a few words after I'm done about the EV support service that is national, but serves anyone and members and that Plug in America has. So they often are served by the utility, like our programs.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to do a little plug. So we have a service called plugstar.com. That's a website that people can go to. It's open to anybody, that asks you questions about your lifestyle, how far you drive on a daily basis, do you go on road trips, how far, where are you going to plug in, how many cars in your family, how much cargo space do you need, and then it recommends particular vehicles that are a good fit for you based on that, and then it suggests dealers that are near you that walk through our program that have been like certified by us, that you can go to. And so it kind of walks you through the whole process of buying a car, up to introducing you to a dealer who can sell you a car that seems to be a good fit for you. And then we also have a help desk that goes along with that, that you can call, and you have basically, Plug in America staff, real EV drivers that are just there to do public education and answer people's emails or phone calls about kind of general EV questions. So mostly we get people who are EV shopping. There's a lot of questions about charging or about incentives or the sort of nuances of whether a particular model is a good fit for them or not. And that's open to anybody. And find out all that at plugstar.com.
Great. We have one final question, and everybody gets to answer this one. What is the one thing that we can do together as a nation and nonprofits and the groups that we're with to accelerate electric vehicle adoption? Let's start with Jenn.
I think it's reach out to kids. Sounds weird, but like kids are convincing their parents. So I think something I neglected to mention was the dyno is very kid friendly. Mm-hmm. And that's on purpose. We want kids to be involved in convincing their parents that EVs are the way to go.
Thank you. Mark?
I think it would be for like-minded organizations like some of us here today to join together, to partner and collaborate, to try to pool our resources and really work on these issues and projects together. And I think that would really go a long way. As I like to often say, I think a rising tide lifts all boats. And this is really what's going to be needed even more as we see the next wave of less informed adopters or priority populations that are going to need more help moving into their own EV journey.
Steven?
I think it's a combination of what Jenn and Mark said, trying new things, trying to reach new audiences, and just staying the course, keeping at it. Definitely more consumer engagement is needed.
Joel?
So I probably sound like a broken record now, but EVs sell by word of mouth. Almost everybody who buys an EV, there's someone who influenced them to buy it. And so if you're an EV driver, talk to your friends, let them go for a ride in your car, share your experience with people. We see that all the time. We're like, the first EV will show up in a neighborhood, and pretty soon the guy down the block has one, and then your dentist has one, and then his sister has one. And so it kind of morphs like that by word of mouth. So that's how they sell. That's the most powerful thing. So if you're an EV driver, kind of push that cycle. And if you're not an EV driver, then, ask your EV driver friends what it's like. How do you feel about your car? And you'll get an earful.
And you know what? That's so important, Joel, that we all come together and support each other, because that it actually gets the message out even stronger. And that's why I really appreciate the panel and everybody's expertise and hearing what everybody's doing. And I'd love to keep in touch. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. We have one quick final poll before we leave you all today. And as you know, 1 hour is not enough time to discuss consumer engagement efforts as we're ramping up to National Drive Electric Week. I hope this was informative for everyone as you start your plan, or if you're already starting your plan and you're trying to figure out what to do, how can we do some virtual events, how can we get folks of all ages engaged and in the topic of transitioning to electric transportation. I hope this was informative to you all. I just want to say a special thank you to our moderator, Margaret. Thank you so much for
thank you.
moderating.
It was fun. It's fun.
And I want to say thank you, Jen. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Stephen. And to our special guest, Joel, thank you so much for all of the information you all have presented today. We did not get through all of the questions, but we will be following up with you all with the webinar slide and the webinar recording. So if you want more information, we'll also include some additional resources. So if you want to learn more about a campaign, learn more about some strategies, there'll be more information for you all. And before we leave, our next webinar will be on Tuesday, September 14th. We'll be talking about building the EV workforce of tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Our panelists will discuss labor concerns, development, job creation, and how we can diversify the workforce to bring in the new era of the EV workforce. So we hope you are able to join us for that webinar. Again, I want to say thank you all for joining us today. We hope to see you on September 14th. So have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you, Gal. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.